Cincinnati's a kind of a unique market in terms of the support that exists for local media. Between the Fortune 500s, the big businesses, the mid-level companies, the mom and pops, the startups, there are a lot of companies in the Cincinnati area willing to pay for local advertising. Now for today's Big Bite. Pivot time. My guest today is David Wysong, the News of Now editor for the Cincinnati Enquirer. He runs the desk that decides what's trending, meaning much of his professional life is taking a real-time pulse of what Cincinnati clicks on, what Cincinnati cares about, what Cincinnati talks about. That's something that all news media people are doing to some degree. And we know that the business of media can be a quickly changing landscape. It has been changing quickly. Sometimes you're working in radio for 20 plus years and then you're convinced that putting this on a screen is a good idea. And then you start really having the time of your life. As far as the local news scene zoomed out goes, it's a little rough out there, depending on where you're at. This right here is a snapshot from the Local News Initiative out of Northwestern University, keeping track of local news outlets by county. The darker the county on that map, the more news options there are. Obviously, generally speaking, cities have more choices than rural areas, and you do see we got Hamilton County registered on there with 8 outlets listed, and I think that's a little bit of a short count, honestly, between print and broadcast. It's difficult work keeping people informed, telling people what they need to hear versus just what they want to hear. And we do live in an area that does it better than a lot of other metros nearby or of similar size. Quantity can be an issue, but there's still pretty good quality out there. A lot of that here locally is because Cincinnati's a kind of a unique market in terms of the support that exists for local media. Between the Fortune 500s, the big businesses, the mid-level companies, the mom and pops, the startups, there are a lot of companies in the Cincinnati area willing to pay for local advertising, support local media. This is local media. But you should also know that capital N news, making money, hasn't always been the thing. I remember this interview that Ted Koppel did with Frontline about 20 years ago. He said, in the very early days of television news, when I first joined ABC in the early 1960s, basically the network didn't care what the hell the news division did. They gave the news division a few $1 million a year, said, here it is, go do whatever it is you people do and do not come back for any more money. They didn't expect news divisions to make money. End quote. Now, whether or not you think that's good, that's how it used to be, and that's not as much the way it is now. Money can be a lot of things in this world, and in this case, money is fuel. I have another map for you. This is from the Rebuild Local News Project by Muck Rack. Hamilton County averaging just over 10 local journalists for every 100,000 people. Checking around the state, that's a better rate than Franklin County's 9 on average and Cuyahoga County's 8.5. The national average is 8.2. Back in the year 2002, the average was 40 journalists per 100,000 Americans. That's a nationwide average. As a business owner, here's something you should be aware of. Just over 1 million Ohioans live in what's considered to be a news desert. Now, here's a really surprising stat from Rebuild Local News on that. News desert counties in the state carry about $1.3 billion in bond debt. And being a news desert makes servicing that debt $12 million more expensive every year. That means that when there is no local reporting on really mundane things like city council or the school board, unmonitored government, the bond market charges more for that. Lenders price in the risk. That's not an opinion about journalism. That's a line item on your taxes. One other heat map to show you from that report. Darker colors here on the map mean higher costs per household based on how much news is available in a county. We're lucky here in the Cincinnati area to have the options that we do. E.W. Scripps was founded here. and there's actually been a growing number of newsrooms locally. We had reporter Kenton Hornback on this show last month. He's with Link NKY, which has been going since 2021, focusing on nuts and bolts reporting specifically for northern Kentucky. Staff there went from 3 to a dozen in a year. This past December, Link NKY Media bought City Beat, the alt weekly that's been published here since the mid-90s, bringing ad sales, design, and print production all back to this area from other states for that paper. Link Media's board chair, Greg Fisher, framed it as an investment in sustainable local journalism. City Beat's fourth owner in more than a decade and the first in the region in years. There's a reason why Cincinnati Business Courier publisher Jamie Smith was my very first guest when we officially launched this show on June 1st. There's a reason why I have Business Courier reporters like Steve Watkins and Chris Wederick on this show. They're putting in the work. They're checking public records. They're getting interviews. They're connecting previous reporting to what's going on now. And there's a reason why I had Enquirer editor Beryl Love as a guest that same very first week. Let me remind you about something that he talked about when it comes to his news philosophy and adapting to how things are now. Take a look.
Right? We have to understand, the ever-changing needs and preferences of our audience. People, I think, do want to stay informed. They want to be in the know. Like FOMO is a real thing. Sure. But if we don't evolve as our audience evolves, then that's on us. So, take politics or take, city government. You can cover that in a dreadfully boring way, or you could drill down and find out what people really care about. And that's all about understanding who your audience is, and that you're not writing for the mayor, you're not writing for city council, you're writing for the people of Cincinnati. And you have to put yourself in their shoes and understand, what do they really need to know? What questions would they ask? Right. And then you can be successful. And I think that's part of evolution is, I like, I share this a lot, but when I get invited to speak, I have a slide of people attending a funeral. And
that's a good start.
And I put up the Mark Twain quote about news of my death has been greatly exaggerated. When people find out what I do, they almost treat me like I've just had a death in the family. Like,
really?
The newspaper, that must be so hard, because they are thinking about what a newspaper used to be compared to what a digital news organization is today. So telling that story about, that we're still around, we're still vital, we're just, we still have the same essential mission, but our main reason to exist is not to publish newspapers, it's not to print newspapers. That's an 1800 era manufacturing, business model. That's not who we are today. And so it's fun to engage people in that way, but it just goes back to, shame on us if we hold on to, what we used to be instead of what the community needs from us today.
Yeah, I mean, the idea. Well, I was about 7 weeks ago. I think I need a haircut. That's your Big Bite. Beryl Love bringing some news philosophy from the way that he approaches things for the paper here in town.